Hey everybody. So today, you're gonna have to pardon my voice. Today we're gonna talk about scatter plots. And before you do that, you're gonna need to have your handy dandy TI-84 plus C Silver Edition graphing calculator. You're gonna want to have that handy because we're gonna do a lot of stuff with that. I'm gonna give you some detailed directions on how to create a scatter plot on here. Okay, so excuse me. A scatter plot is a graph that shows a relationship between two data sets. The two sets of data are graphed as ordered pairs on a coordinate plane. So you're going to have an XY axis, and you're mostly going to be in quadrant one. And you're going to have a relationship. You're going to have two data sets, one going horizontally, one going vertically. So here's some examples of some different scatter plots. Okay, here's a regular two-dimensional one. Here's another two-dimensional one. You can do three-dimensional ones. This is a nice three-dimensional one here. You can do them in color, and scatter plots can be really cool sometimes. They can be really cool to look at. So if you look really carefully at this one, you probably can't read this on the video, but if you look at the notes, you can. This compares weight to miles per gallon. Okay, so this would tell you the heavier the vehicle, you can see the miles per gallon gets less and less on average. Here we have weight and height. Okay, so this would probably be a person. I'm guessing this is a person. This is height in inches, or no, weight in pounds, and height. That's probably in centimeters. So, and who knows what this is? I can't even read the. Let's see, that says CO3. Can't tell what that is, or this. So anyway, some of these scatter plots can be really cool and very complicated. All right, here's a nice simple one. The scatter plot on the left shows the amount of fat in grams and the numbers of calories in 12 restaurant sandwiches. Okay, so you got the fat across the bottom, and you've got the calories across the top. Notice I've got this quick little zigzag right here. They jump straight from 0 to 300, so you don't have to put the 300 below. Excuse me, below there. Okay. And we got a couple questions. So how many calories are in a sandwich that contains 17 grams of fat? So what we would do is we'd go along the fat here to 17's right about here. And we go up here, and we've got this data point right there. We go across there. That's 400 calories. So 400 calories. How many grams of fat are in a sandwich that contains 600 calories? So I go up here to 600 calories, and I go across to this data point right here, and then I would go down here, and that would be 30 grams. Okay. What tends to happen to the number of calories as the number of grams of fat increases? So as my fat increases, it looks like my calories also increase as well. Okay. Now, the funny thing about data is, we should write that down too, so that as fat grams increase, calories tend to increase as well. Okay, now here's the thing about data. You have to have proper data. You have to have enough data, because I can always show something if I want to, whether it's true or not. Okay, I could choose, if I just chose this set of data right here, these two data points right here, it would look like as the fat increases that the calories decrease. Okay, and people will do that all the time. That's why you should always question statistics. Okay, you should always question statistics and make sure that that they're done properly, so that you get accurate information. Okay, so these are the types of scatter plot relationships. So you've got a positive linear relationship. So as x increases, y increases. An example of that might be the height of a person and their weight. Okay, now that doesn't mean that everybody who's taller weighs more than somebody who's shorter, but in general they do. Okay, a negative relationship. This could be something like how long that I've lived compared to how long I have left to live. Right? The longer I live, the shorter amount of time I have left to live, and so that's a decreasing relationship. No relationship at all. So this is obviously just scattered everywhere. There's no rhyme or reason to this data. Okay. Now, what you need, this would be a case where you need to make sure that that you have enough data, because sometimes if you take this and you kind of back out further and further, you'll see that the data, if you get more and more data, will take on a shape. It might be something more like this. It could be you're just looking at that part right there, and there's not really much to look at. Okay, so you have to have enough data. Now, this is a positive relationship, but it's not linear, so it's curved. Okay, some things don't grow in lines, they grow in curves. Exponential growth, which is what populations tend to do. This is what your bank account will do if you earn interest. If you earn a set interest rate over time and you don't take the money out, your bank account will do something like this. Okay, so describe the relationship between the data and identify any outliers, gaps, or clusters. Okay, so television size versus price. So here's the television size, and here's the price in dollars. So as you can see, the bigger the TV tends to get, the more expensive it gets. Now, there's always a weird one, okay? So this one right here, you would have expected this to be up here somewhere. This would be what you would call an outlier because it doesn't fit the rest of the data. There might be some strange reason for why that is. Maybe this is a TV set size that nobody wants, and so they're just trying to get rid of it. You don't know. So maybe it was a return and it's being sold again. Hard to say. Okay, but it's pretty obvious if you look at the vast majority of the data, as the size of the TV gets bigger, the cost goes up. Okay, now over here we're comparing a person's age in years to the number of pets that they own. Well, this is a little bit, I mean, you look at this data, there's no relationship that you can get here. I mean, you've got high data points and low data points. There's no line, there's no linear or even a curved that you can see. It's just scattered, so there would be no relationship there. I don't see any outliers here other than maybe this one. I mean, nobody has 6 pets except for this one person in the data set, so maybe that's an outlier. Okay. All right, so now you're going to want to look at your TI-84. So I've put up a screen here, and we're going to make a scatter plot on here. Now, the first thing that you want to do is you want to clear out any memory that's in here, because you don't want some stuff in your data that's going to cause you problems, okay? You don't want to add to some data that's already in there that's not part of your data. So the first thing you should always do when making a scatter plot is to clear the memory to make sure there's no information there from a previous problem. To do this, you push the second and the plus key to reach the memory key. So here's your second key right here, right up here in the top left, okay? And then your plus. If you look at your plus key, it says MEM above it in blue letters. To access the blue letters, you always push the second key, okay? And that's your memory key. So you're going to go ahead and push that. Second, memory. And then you're going to see this screen right here, okay? Now, this would probably be easier to look at in the notes than to look at on the screen here. But if you look down here to number 4, it says clear all lists. So you're going to hit 4, and you're going to hit enter, and it should say done. And that means that your lists are clear. All your data is emptied out of this thing. Okay, so you're good to start a new scatter plot. Okay, so we're going to make a scatter plot using the data in the chart. Okay, so here's my data. So first thing we got to do is we got to enter the data. Now, study time is going to be our X, and our test scores are going to be our Y's. Okay, so what you're going to do is you're going to push the stat key. Your stat key is right here. Okay, so if I look right here, there's your stat key. Okay, you're going to push stat, and it's going to come up and it's going to be highlighted at edit. Okay, so you're going to select edit. You can just hit enter, or you can push 1 and then enter. Okay, now what it's going to do is it's going to bring you up a couple of lists. Okay, so it's going to look like this. You want to make sure that you're in this first column where it says L1. So mine came up, it's in L2, which means that I was using this before, and I had 2 lists in here. And so what I need to do is arrow to the left and get L1. All right, so make sure you're in L1. Use your arrow key to get there if you're not. Now, it's very important that you always enter your data in the proper order. The X's and the Y's have to go together. Okay, so I'm going to go back up here. Here's my X's, and I'm going to enter them in this order right here. So 30, enter, 20, enter, 60, enter, 90, 45, 10, 30, 75, 120, and 80. Now, if you can, do this as we go along. Pause the video as you need to and go along. Now, I've entered all my X's in here. Okay, so I should be right down here. Now I need to enter the Y's. The Y's go in list 2. So I'm going to use my right arrow key right here. It's right there. Push that. It's going to put me in L2. And now I'm going to enter my Y's, and I need to enter them in this exact order so that they go together. The 30 goes with the 80. Okay, so 80, enter, 74, 92, 97, 85, 62, 83, 90, 70, and 91. All right, now this is going to be critically important when you get to this stage. Always look and make sure that your columns are exactly the same length. You should not have an extra number in either column. If you did, you got a problem. You got to go back and re-enter it. Okay. Now, if you've got this entered correctly, the rest of this is going to go pretty easily. Okay. So the data are now entered. Whoops, correctly. Where'd I go? Okay, now we got to make a scatter plot. So how do you do this? The first thing you got to do is you got to turn your plots on. People forget to do this all the time. So, excuse me. If you look up here along the top row, your Y equals and window and zoom and trace, we're going to look at this blue key right here, stat plot. So you're going to go second stat plot. And what you'll get is you'll get a screen that looks just like this. Okay? Notice it says plot 1 is off. I need to turn that on. Okay? So what I just do is it should be highlighted right here just like this one is. I'm just going to hit enter. And it's going to take me to a screen. I put that screen down here. Let's see. Yeah, right here. It says off. I want to arrow to the left and turn it on. I'm going to arrow to the left and hit enter so that it says on. Okay. Now, this gives me all kinds of different graphs. This is the one I want. This is a scatter plot right here. It's the one with the little dots. It's probably already highlighted. Okay. So if it's not, highlight that. Okay. This should say L1 for your X list and Y list should say L2. Don't mess with that. Okay, now the marks, it gives you 3 choices for marks. It's usually best to use the little square ones. You can use whichever one you want. I don't care. It doesn't really matter. But it's easiest to see if you've got the little square marks. Okay. Now, if you've got lots and lots of data, you probably want to use the little dots. Okay. But you can select those. So once I've done that, now what I have to do is I have to determine where is my window going to be. Because if I try to graph it right now, I can try to graph. I hit graph, and I got nothing showing up on my screen. And the reason is my window is off. Okay. So here's what I need to do. I need to, this is my screen that's right here. I got to determine what part of the graph am I going to look at. Okay. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to look at my data, look at my x's, and I'm going to find my smallest x. My smallest x is 10. Okay. So I'm going to push my window key, which is right here. Okay. And I'm going to enter 0 for that. Okay, I want to be a little bit smaller than my smallest one. Then I'm going to look for my largest x. That's going to be 120. Okay, so where it says x max, I'm going to put 130 in there. Now the next key says SCL, scale. Okay, that's going to determine how I'm going to count. Now I'm going from 0 to 130. I'm not going to count by ones because I'm going to have so many little dots on there, I'm not going to be able to see anything. So I'm going to count by tens. Okay, so I enter 10 for X scale. Now I got to do my Y's. I got to do the same thing. I find the smallest Y, 62. Okay, and I'll probably go, I could go to 50 in there. So push 50 for Y min. And then my biggest one is going to be 97. So I'll go to 100 for my Y max. And my Y scale, you can usually get about 20 of something in there. So I can count by fives. Okay, now I've got all that in there. Okay, so what I did on this one, I actually went from 0 to 120 by tens, and I went from 0 to 100 by tens. Let's just do that instead. Okay. Now, this X resolution key down here, it should say 1. Don't change that. Just leave it alone. That's only going to get you into trouble. Okay. So that's my window. That tells me what I get to see. Okay. Now I'm going to go ahead and hit my graph. And I get a graph that looks just like this. Yours should look similar to that. That's a scatter plot. Now, if I look at that, that doesn't really look very linear. It kind of looks linear, these right here. This one's kind of a weird one out here. That would be one that we might call an outlier. There's actually a formula for calculating outliers. We're not going to do that quite yet. Okay, so that's how you create a scatter plot. Okay, and you can go back and look at the directions here and follow those again. Okay, so you're going to get to do problems 1 through 21, the odd ones here. And I think I covered everything. I feel like I missed something. We'll go back and do some other things with how to create that. But today I just want you to be able to create a scatter plot. And that's kind of a lot of learning to do, especially on a graphing calculator for the first time. So good luck with that, and I'll talk to you guys next time.